Well, good morning, good afternoon. John Ley and Tamer Ali here for How to Find a Training for Business LMS webinar. We've got an exciting hour jam-packed for you here today. And thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule. We got people from all over the world that have registered, and so excited to have you here to share what we know. And but maybe a place to start off is, how do we find a what? A training for business LMS. What is exactly that? And if you're not from HR, or you're from the extended, but you're in charge or been placed in charge of finding learning technology for external audiences, for channel partners or your customers, it's really hard to know exactly what you need. And so you start looking on Google, and you'll find things like training systems or online systems, learning systems, training management, training for business, e-commerce training, e-commerce for learning, extended enterprise. You may start searching for, organizations start searching for down all these different veins to try to figure out what type of technology do you really need that's for training people that are not your employees. And inevitably, where you end up is at a learning management system in your research. The problem is there's a lot of learning management systems, and that makes it confusing also. And so that's what we're going to try to cut through here today. I'm John Ley. I'm the CEO, founder, and lead analyst here at Talented Learning. Just a quick bit about me. About 20 years ago, I was lucky enough to enter in a program called Instructional Technology here at Bloomsburg University. Got a master's degree and got out, and in my first jobs, I was working creating content for channel partners of high-tech and telecom companies. And I spent years doing that before I transitioned into LMS sales for 13 years, eventually leading sales and marketing on a global basis for a Tier 1 provider. All that time in selling LMSs and then creating e-learning content, even before it was called e-learning, my specialty has been training for business and focusing on organizations that are using training and learning as a competitive advantage for their non-employees. I couldn't find anything out in the marketplace that really spoke to that at length or at detail, and thought it was an opportunity to in the marketplace. So 2 years ago, I hung up my sales shoes and founded Talented Learning to be a research analyst, learning technology analyst firm and consulting firm that focused specifically on all the aspects of training for business. And I started a research process at the very beginning, where I just started going LMS by LMS and identifying what they did, who they did it for, what were their functionalities, how did they support training for business and extended enterprise learning, and started documenting that. And as I made my way through the world, I came across some really, really great systems. Now I've reviewed 92 learning management systems. One of the best I've found for extended enterprise and training for business was Digital Ignite. And that led me to Tamer, who's I'm lucky enough to have here as a co-host today. So Tamer?
John, really kind words. We appreciate it. We welcome an entry point like John's firm because we felt like we kind of had the similar history. Is that we came from, in my background, is in learning technology. That's my academic and professional background. And what we've done and what we know is that, for people that see learning as a business or strategic operations, there wasn't a real clear-cut solution or provider out there that was addressing some of the things that we saw were very key and unique features that they needed. So we were happy that an analyst came to put a lens on this industry, and we welcome the competition. I think that's the best for both the competition and the consumer industry. And our background is building and deploying what we consider high-profile programs for-profit and non-profit organizations that have aspirations to deliver this education around the world. And we have to make sure it stayed up and running and performing at a high level, and that it's effective. So we have to have multiple hats, one as educators and one as operations and business people, to make sure these programs work. And like the quote says, we do believe that the industry we're in, we're in a knowledge economy, and we believe we're in a very fortunate position to be in a way where we can deliver education that helps in developing people's lives and their professions. So thank you, John.
Great. Thanks, Tamer. Thanks. So here's what we've got planned for you today. We've been working on this for months. We've got a lot of data here. It's going to go fast-paced, even faster than the intro here. So we already did the introductions. We're going to do a little bit about training for business overview. You know, what is it? What's it look like in its different manifestations? And then we're going to talk about that LMS conundrum of what you do with 600 LMSs and your requirements and how to figure that all out. But before we jump into showing you exactly how to sort through the marketplace to find out what you need, Tamer's going to take us through some live examples. When we say high stakes, Tamer's probably being modest as he always is. We're talking real high stakes here from the world's biggest organization. So wait till you see what we have in store for to show you live examples of training for business working. And then I'll take you through a 4-step process. So based on my 13 years of selling, and now for my paying day job, I help customers buy learning management systems of all types. So I created a 4-step process that's different than what you see in all the other 9, 10, 12-step process out there on how to find an LMS, because it's more conceptual about how you approach it and less about how you create an RFP. So guarantee you haven't seen anything exactly like this before. And so we'll take questions and answers periodically throughout. So use the question board and I'll answer them, and throw some good questions out to Tamer along the way here. So let's get into it. So what is training for business? And in that first slide when we started out, it's all those different names for it: e-commerce, LMSs, and this, and training for business, and extended enterprise. And when I started researching here 2 years ago, and while I was an LMS sales guy, I just couldn't figure out where to go to find extended enterprise people talking about that. And what I finally, took me long enough, but what it finally came to fruition in my mind here in the last year is that extended enterprise, the term that is only used really inside of HR. It's the HR term for all that training that's not our employees, and they kind of just put it in a bucket and say everything out there is extended enterprise or training for business. But if you're from the training for business side, you're from the business, the product, the marketing, the channel side of a corporation, then you don't know it's called extended enterprise. It's called one of those other terms. And very frequently, its business functions are the owners of these systems. And so right from the beginning, there's confusion. But the thing with the learning management system is that they were made for compliance starting almost 30 years ago already. And all of them were focused on managing mandatory internal employee learning. And the extended enterprise is all about, and training for business is all about enticing, attracting, and getting volunteer users to swipe their credit card, purchase content, do something from a voluntary standpoint that maybe they don't even want to do. And you have to make them or entice them to do that. And the traditional learning management systems aren't geared towards that. If you have to take mandatory HR ethics training, it really does not matter how well the LMS looks or feels or whether it's attractive or not. None of those things are material. You're compelled to take it or you'll lose your job. And so it's a lot easier to be an internal employee LMS than it is to think about things for training for business, because you have to sell learning also, and e-commerce. But why would anybody do this? They're doing it because it impacts business metrics, and we'll talk about that in a second. They're using it as a business tool, a business competitive advantage tool for training for business. So what are some examples? From a corporation perspective, it's your channel partners, franchises, dealers, agents, customers, prospects, all of them. By educating them, you can change their behavior, making them more aware of your products and service, ancillary products, improving your customer satisfaction rates. There's lots of outcomes from pushing training out to those non-employee audiences. But then there's also the training providers like associations and other member-based organizations where they make their living really on collecting professionals of a like-minded nature and then providing all kinds of education and best practices and thought leadership to help those people throughout their career, doctors or lawyers or accountants or whatever it may be. And so lots of member organizations and continuing education providers need to have an LMS, more of a learning marketing system as opposed to a learning management system that helps reach these audiences and engage them in a way that they'll swipe their credit card and build your business of a stream of revenue. The public sector is also a really big user of this to reach many people. The California Chamber of Commerce provides training opportunities for any business that's in California. So they sell different content to help new business owners on how to do different tasks and HR tasks. There's police departments over in England that have created e-learning opportunities for when you get speeding tickets. You can take that and not get so many points. And so they've turned speeding tickets into a training for business operation from a public standpoint. And academic institutions are now doing it because they're competing online to sell their content and certification. Attorney or lawyer education, they're trying to attract new users to come and competing with each other and putting their content online and selling it. And so all these different applications are all around selling and getting voluntary learners, and none of that sounds like making employees take compliance training. So quickly, they use it to make money, so to sell content as their primary stream of revenue or as a complementary stream. I know of an IT company, a security company, that sells basically security penetration services to see if they can break your network or penetrate into your network. And then as an ancillary line of business that's now grown over 7 figures a year, they sell content on security awareness to different organizations. So a non-content company now is using very strategically to drive revenue. You can also use it to drive more of your core products and services. So by teaching your customers or your channel how to sell it better and your customers how to use it better, you have the opportunity to get renewals, to get complementary sales and upsales over time. Companies are using it to save money. So it's the same e-learning arguments we've been using since I've been in the industry. Create it once and reuse that content and deploy it many times and ensure a high level of instructional design. There's just no way of doing that in instructor-led or traditional ways. And so using an LMS and extended learning training for business is a way to just automate that across the worldwide and have more scalability than you had ever before. But I think where you really see organizations getting strategic with it now is the shortening of their cycle time. And that means the time to do anything in business costs money. So if you can shave days or weeks or months off that, then that makes a big impact to when you're up and producing profitable revenue for the organization. So that could be finding new channel partners, onboarding and certifying new channel partners, onboarding and certifying channel partners, new employees, opening up new stores or regions, moving into to global areas that you're not there before. All those things take less time when you're using a strategic training for business learning management system. And so all that's a big intro. Let me turn it over right now to Tamer. As I'm doing that, Tamer, what do you think we'll get you some live examples here right now. Let me make you presenter. But Tamer, what do you think are the main differences, or what do you see as a difference between training for employees and training for business?
John, it's the big question, right? Is what's the difference? And for us, the big difference is in the training space where the focus is internal, they have to take the content, or there is a compelling drive outside of their own desires where they have to take the educational content to meet compliance requirements, organizational rules, sexual harassment, such as policies that drive their reason to go there. And in the training for business, it's people who want to take content and they need it for professional development or requirements for participating in a reseller or a channel program. So one is a requirement and must versus a want, and that changes the whole perspective of how we run the operations. It runs like a business, like the namesake, and so for us, that changes the approach, how the learning is constructed, to the appearance of the portal. And you're seeing one example here is it probably doesn't look like a learning management system. It doesn't look like Craigslist, which most LMSs in the past have, because they didn't need to embellish the experience. They knew people had to jump into what we consider like a cafeteria model. You got in, you got your food in a tray, and you had to sit down where it was prescribed and complete that that meal or the activity in that in the sense of it being a whole prescribed process and really not a choice. It was one route in and a pretty clear exit, and nobody was very excited about that. Now with the knowledge economy, the requirements in the reseller world, the channel world, sales enablement to professional education and certifying bodies, they compete. Even if it's mandatory, there's for-profit and non-profit competitors, and so you're competing for the attentions and the eyeballs of these people. You have to grab them, you have to keep them, and there are tools and techniques to do that. And in this industry, this specialist industry in LMS space is geared to that.
Nice.
And John, I can go continue to, once you're ready, I could go into this example if you feel it's okay.
Yeah, fire away.
Great. So what we're seeing here is the portal itself is from a company that many of you are probably using just to come to this webinar. It's Intel. Intel Corporation came to us and had a challenge of addressing a global audience of retail salespeople who needed to learn about their products, and they go through a certification program. Our portal was configured for them to attract the retail salespeople who are on the sales floor, so you have to have their attention. So there's a lot of branding here, a lot of targeting millennial audience members who make up the key demographic their audience is made up of. And in the dashboard or the entry point for the learner, they're quickly introduced to the content and the subject matter, both through very simple text, iconography to catch their eye, and clear indicators of what they need to do and where their progress is. And that's really key for us, is we don't have a lot of time to introduce the learning and have them read. They're not going to read a two-page disclaimer and things like that. They need to get to the educational content and the requirements they have and get to it quickly. So this portal has been a very big success. It's been launched in several different languages, 7 different languages. 6 different portals, and what it's really accomplishing across all of them, behind the scenes, it's really listing courses in a program that goes from what they call associate to specialist to professional, advancing the person's knowledge. At any point, the person could come in here and very clearly see, oh, I need to take this course or courses. I click on continue, and I'm quickly taken to another screen where it shows me where I am in the program. As you can see, I've completed only 1 of 8 courses, what courses I've started, and very clearly indicating my progress in each one. We have gamification in this, in that there are chips or points that one can earn that leads to awards programs and notoriety. And finally, once I actually complete the program, I take an exam that's delivered by our platform, and if I'm lucky enough to pass the exam, I actually get a certificate of completion and mastery for that program. At the higher level program levels, you actually even get the certificate mailed to you in a nice quality cardstock paper through DHL or FedEx. So this is a full program, and what we're trying to do in all of these programs is retain the user's attention and get them quickly to content. This is another group within Intel targeting resellers and distributors. They also have the requirements that, if you're a reseller, you have to do a certain amount of training, and it came from another provider. We won't name names, but this provider was providing a service, an LMS service, but it was, they counted over 18 clicks to get to educational content, so they wanted to simplify it. You come in, you're as a reseller or distributor, you quickly see buckets of content streams that you are required to take or recommended to take, depending on who you are, and then at some point you're going to dive in and be interested in them, or go in and browse on your own what courses and educational content are available. And taking a little bit from the Amazon and the Netflix model of allowing people to browse very quickly to content, I can look at the educational opportunities available to me, hover over the descriptions to get a full description, and at some point I can see the credits available and then launch the item. Again, this is where we come into play again, where we were presenting the content and enhancing the experience with educational quiz and survey. The tool set is taking care of the presentation and delivery of the content, and then we're enhancing it with quizzing and surveying that, of course, the client requires as a part of this. And as you can see, this video is going to play. It's video that's pointing to an Intel server, and it's going to play in a moment here, as you can see. And I'll exit out of here. But the key thing here is all the sites that we do, we must engage. The other thing we must be doing is we have to have enforced democratic access. Again, one of the advantages of doing corporate training is you know who everyone is and you know what kind of computers they have. That does not happen in our space. We have to make sure that the devices and the profiles are supported, you know, whether it's the browsers they're using or the devices, tablets they're using, smartphones, we have to support it. So for this site and all the sites we build, they're responsive. So whether you're on a smartphone, John's on a tablet, I'm on a desktop, the entire sites are working and responsive to those devices. So I didn't display this on this site, but the same concept is wherever you are and whatever device, you can pick up your progress and continue your activity. John, that's probably a long-winded section of examples, but I'll switch it back to you. Sorry.
Nice. No, that's really great on a lot of different levels. Even if the audience here noticed Tamer's terminology, not calling it a domain or it's a site, it's a website that's driving training, and maybe that's the point here is that the line is so blurred between between the LMS and the marketing site when it comes to true training for business. It is just like a website that you're driving. You're doing a lot of the same things that an e-commerce business would do, just out of the normal way of doing business. The other thing that I really like is the concept of responsive design. Like a lot of in my research and travels, I found lots of organizations that use mobile apps, vendors that use mobile apps as the strategy. I think mobile apps are fine, but what happens is you got a lot of overhead with them and making a couple different flavors, for Android and iOS, and then keeping them updated and getting people to download them, and all those things are extra steps for the user. But if you make it really truly mobile responsive like that, you can really streamline the access to that and make that all a non-issue. So it's neat to see Intel doing that. Hey, Tamer, do you see, just like our practice session, we get off track here or get deep into the track, do you see that organizations like Intel, and other corporations, are they doing this holistically when it comes to a channel or a customer LMS, or are they kind of go program by program? Do you see any trends in the industry one way or the other?
It's a good question. I think it's the earlier example is they don't, or latter, sorry, is that they typically, because these are business units that are funded at the individual level and not coming from a larger umbrella HR training perspective, the business units, and the good thing is that they're a little bit more agile and moving like a business. They fund it on their own or find the funding and go with it that way. What we find is, even with Intel, we have multiple groups. Each one of them are separate clients, and they run in their own operating budgets. And we've seen that with other groups like Rackspace, is that different groups will fund it and they'll support it. And they hear word of mouth that, hey, someone else has got a portal, and they'll leverage the portal technology, but they'll want the control and do their own thing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. That's what I'm uncovering in my research, which is different than where I started conceptually. I believe for a long time that it was one system that could do it all, and that's really where the industry was, to do it all from an internal standpoint and do it all from a portal standpoint. And though I think technically that's feasible with some of the better vendors, I don't see the purchasing happening like that. It's much more segmented. But here's the conundrum that about finding the right LMS. So you go through all those terms, or whatever term you start at, and you find that you need an LMS, because whether you like it or not, the learning industry has figured out a way to keep track of learning and online learning. And so it's always the application of that into the business world. And so though that it may be changing, but that's pretty much what it is. And so if you search the global industry today, there's 600 LMS providers. And when you go to their websites, it is not obvious that there's a lot of differentiation. The websites look the same. They have the same type of information, the same benefits and features, and by and large, it looks like the same core LMS-y type product sets. And so, it's very difficult to discern any differences. And if you ask most of these LMS vendors, can you use your LMS for training for business or extended enterprise? And though I've only gotten to 92 of the 600, I find few that would say, no, we're not interested. You could use it in all ways like that. And so the conundrum is that you have LMS vendors that have technology that could be applied, but not an expertise, though they say that it can be an expertise. And you as the buyer have to try to sort through all that, and that's challenging. And after reviewing 92 LMSs, I know it's challenging as I slice through the marketing fluff one by one to try to figure out what's really going on. And so it's kind of like pushing a rock uphill if you have to keep on qualifying these vendors. And I did a post one time where I started adding up the costs of what it takes to qualify, because here's what it takes to qualify. You go to a website, and an LMS website, and you say, contact me, and they send you an email, and you set up a time to talk, and when you talk, they ask you about your questions, but you get a whole lot of selling going on from the salesperson, and then you set up a demonstration, and then you invite your team. And if you don't instruct them correctly, you get the same demonstration that they give everybody. And right there, you just invested 7-8 hours of team time and your own time, and you're no further along than you were on the website to know if they actually meet your needs. And that has a cost. That could have a cost, an internal cost of $1,000 or $2,500 every time you do that to a vendor. So it's the conundrum is that you want to find the vendors, but there's so many to look for, and it's hard to qualify them, and it's expensive. And this is why there's confusion out there. But to get to the rock all the way to the top of the hill, like you really need to do, is you need to understand that LMS differentiation is based on a few things: on their experience, on the industry that they play in, the functional capabilities, the business function that they have targeted their LMS for, their technical sturdiness, and how they do their license approach. That is what's different. Those 6 or 7 buckets are what's different from vendor to vendor. And so what you need to do is create a vendor qualification process. And that's a way that you can basically put vendors through a test to see whether they belong in or out of the qualification process, whether you want to spend more time with them or not. And the trick is to do it in an hour and not to do it after investing 10 hours of your team's time and your own time. So you got to do it earlier in the cycle as your qualification. And what that will allow you to do then is to evaluate a series or a handful of vendors that are all qualified to meet your needs. And that's when it gets interesting, where you can really evaluate the best partner for you and have apples to apples and on pricing and on functionality and on how they address the situation. So it's actually really easy. It's 4 steps, I think, as I go through this time and time again here in my day life. But it's about planning, then defining your requirements, then using that as the blueprint or the template to qualify vendors in or out, and then to stick them through the final proposal process. And that's kind of different than you'll see in mostly recommended. It's always like, send out this RFP early in the cycle, have 15 or 20 vendors, answer this behemoth, and then choose your short list and get demonstrations and go from there. I think that whole process is backwards. I think it's better to qualify out quicker and earlier so that you spend the majority of your time in the proposal process or in the selection process with qualified vendors. So let me show you how to do that real quickly. So first thing you got to do, step 1, is create that business plan. So if you're an internal employee LMS, typically it's being driven above your head. There's compliance problems, and the first LMS gets pushed down as an idea to solve those compliance problems. But for training for business, it always needs to start with a business plan, because you don't just do it because it's fun. You're doing it to make money or to save money or to reduce your cycle times. So it's important to start off to say, all right, well, what are those business metrics are we trying to impact, and can we measure that now? And what will happen if we impact that? If we grow sales by 10%, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of revenue to the company, and what does that mean in terms of needed revenue to fund this project. Who are the intended training audiences? Is there 100 audiences, or is there 3 or 4, or 2 or 3? And who are they? And do we know who they are? Are we trying to attract them? Do we have competitive, like Tamer was saying, for every piece of continuing education content, you have for-profit and not-for-profit organizations competing for that business to sell that continuing education to the end user. So it's important to, I find, in your business case, to find who that competition is, who's selling content inside that space, how big is that space, and how successful could you be at your maximum successfulness. So that's all part of your business plan. And also, because it's not employees, you have to work into on how you're going to attract these new learners, and where are they going to come from, and what do you project the rate? One of the biggest mistakes that LMS buyers make is they have no idea what their usage patterns are, and they tell that to the vendors. And then vendors have no idea of whether this is bigger than a bread box or smaller than a morsel. They have no idea how to react and how to treat it. So it's really important from a buyer standpoint to say, these are our usage predictions, and you should have them if you're creating your business plan, to come up with some sort of predictions so vendors can use that to see what the scope of the opportunity is over a multiple year horizon. And from a buying standpoint, you get to use that as a lens to look at apples to apples pricing, so that you can get pricing based on a 3-year growth pattern. And that allows you, because some vendors are cheaper at the lower end or cheaper at the higher end, and so by doing it throughout a life cycle of 3 years like that, it gives you a nice foundation for your business case, but it also gives vendors something to understand. And you also certainly document the industry of your audiences, because industry is a big differentiator on LMS providers on who plays in what industry better. So step 2, after you define your business plan, is roll that down the next step and define your requirements. Now, what every organization does is they define their functional use, or their functional requirements, and they kind of really glimmer over the other 4, the technical, professional service, ongoing support, and the business requirements. And so in my capacity as a consultant analyst, I see LMS selection processes from all different kinds of organizations, and I don't always find them at the beginning. Sometimes I'm brought in mid-process, and I get to look, and I say, okay, well, show me your requirements, is always my first ask. After they tell me everything, just let me review requirements and see where you guys are at. And what I find is that almost everything is in the functional, and it's where I find is it's lots of this old efficient way where they just start listing out in a spreadsheet, and we've all seen them. It's from a sales perspective, I guess it's the ticket to play. From a buyer perspective, you feel like you need to ask for every feature that could possibly be in the world of learning management systems. I just reviewed one literally just 2 days ago, and I think there was, 369 different requirements. But then when I asked for use cases on how they were going to use them, I couldn't get straight answers on any of those, on how they were actually going to do that. Well, what happens is when you ask for the whole kit and caboodle, the whole kitchen sink of requirements, what you do is you end up disqualifying a lot of specialty providers that would be great partners, because you're going for the LMS that has everything. Well, just like in anything else in life, when you have everything, you only do everything okay. You don't do everything great, but when you specialize, you do something great. So specialists are what you want to find, in my opinion, if you can find them, a specialist based on your business needs. And the way to do that is not to use functional requirements, but to use functional use cases instead. And use cases describe step by step how each of your intended audiences are going to interact with the site. How are they going to find the site? What are they going to do when they get to the site? Did somebody already purchase training for them, or do you expect them to browse and find content? What type of content do you want to push and recommend to them? All those questions of how often are they going to come back? Would they ever need reports? How are they going to use the certificate? All those change, and there's really not typically for even one of those Intel audiences, there's only 2 or 3 maybe different audiences, audience types that are going to interact. So this isn't a big laborious, but if you can map out about how you want them to interact with your site, what that does is that filters down to the critical requirements that you need working together to achieve that. And that's what you want to go search for. You want to look at that interaction of these functional use cases, and you want to see the vendors and talk to the vendors about that specifically, because every vendor will say, yes, I got all this. But you say, do you have it this way, and can it go from here to here, and this is our vision? And you'll find a lot of them say, well, no, well, you don't do it that way, or we can't do it that way. And so it's important to highlight that vision, or inevitably you'll get a system that has the check boxes of what you want, but not what you really need to drive a business. And you might get away with that with employee learning, but you just can't get away with that inside of the training for business world. The other big thing that is a huge differentiator in extended enterprise is really adherence to technical requirements and the technical sturdiness of the vendor. And so there's a lot of variables here to account for, and that if you define up front, no vendor does all of this. So if you define what you need up front, you can quickly disqualify ones that can't do that. But if you know whether you need a SaaS or a private cloud or an on-premise, or if you're going to need CFR validation or federal CNAs, or whether you're going to be deploying in places with lower bandwidth, or what the browsers are, and what countries, and what language, and what integrations, and do you need, depending on what industry you're in, what level of security and stage and production environments do you need, and backups, and third-party penetration tests, and service level agreements, and what standards you're going to support. But these things are all important to know from a system, because you can go very far. You can go 10, 12 hours with a vendor before you realize that they don't have a validated system, and you're in a validated industry. So a lot of times these need to be, not a lot of times, all times these need to be brought forward in the sales process and communicated with vendors up front on what your actual requirements are, so that you can qualify them in or out. And ramble in there, Tamer, take over for me and tell me why. What's your take on why the technical and security things are so different? What have you experienced?
Well, just like you said, John, that we're in a different target audience, and we run differently. And for an operations to work like a business, we have to not just worry about the education. We can't just be academics sitting at our our podiums or standing at our podiums and talking about how great the education is. We've got to perform multiple roles, and the other side of that is we got to make sure this content is up and running at all times. It has to be reliable, high performance. Reliable being it's got to be up and running. We can't take away. We've seen vendors and companies or internal shops where they'll bring the house down and the systems down during a Friday afternoon because that's the best time for the IT team. Or, for example, is that the system is not supportive of different technologies. Now with the mobile devices and the smartphones people use, we see on our usage patterns over 172 different countries, we're seeing about 30 to 40% of traffic coming from mobile devices on any time, any given day. So those things we have to keep in mind all the time. And we run like what we consider the profiles of a website, like a bank site or travel site. A travel site can't discriminate. A site can't discriminate and say you can't use this version of IE or this version of Firefox. We have to be accommodating, and have to not only just have to be running, but we have to run it securely. We take personal data very seriously. We have to align to the industry standards like PCI and DSS, and then we have to make sure our infrastructure providers support and align with those requirements as well. So it's not just, this is not just, I guess, you'll have to excuse the pun, it's not just academic. This is not just about education, it's about the business of education. So there's the other side of this, and we have to run it like a tight running business, and these three areas have to be accounted for.
Something I'm hearing, thanks Tamer, something I'm hearing all the time now or more frequently is the whole idea of content distribution networks. What are your thoughts on that? Are you seeing, what is that, and are you seeing that in requested solutions here that are global training for business?
Definitely, because what happens is people in the past said, well, I'll just put up some servers and I could just, it's a server problem, I'll just put more. Hardware is not the only solution, obviously. One is the proximity of the content to the user. Companies like Google and YouTube have figured that out, and they know that they can't just have something being served out of Silicon Valley to serve an audience that is global. We have that same challenge. I mentioned before is we have users coming from 172 different countries. We cannot assume that we could put that in one place and have it a smooth experience for someone to download a streaming video. So we, thankfully, we're at a time where we can take advantage of great infrastructure like Amazon and other cloud services. Microsoft's Azure is another, where you can put content. Essentially, what it is putting the content closer to the users. So with high pockets of users in Russia and Poland and the Far East, we put content closer to them using these providers. We put it securely so the system is recognizing where they're coming from and giving them the closest version of that content. And that's been a great thing for us, and it allows us to scale and for the users as well. The other challenge with international is there are certain areas in the world where they have different requirements. China being for one, we have to put our content and our software closer to the Chinese population on mainland PRC because they have governmental restrictions that will filter and slow down internet traffic. So these are the challenges that we are aware of. We're constantly battling them, being on a global scale. So those are things to keep in mind if you have those aspirations.
Great. Thanks, Tamer. Thank you. All right. So to continue on, Windows out of my way here. So to continue on, if you square away those functional use cases, you square away the technical requirements that you have, the last thing that you see is, the last big hurdle that you have to think about is professional service, the range of professional services. So back in the day, for many, many years, everybody was under door 2. It's setup focused. It was about, it's about getting your LMS up and running, your employees loaded into it. It's doing that in the most efficient, productive way so that the vendor could walk away, essentially, and you'd have a system and you would go. And that's still, in a lot of ways, that's still a pretty primary way of thinking about setting up an employee system. But in the last 5 years, there's been the evolution of the cloud providers. And the cloud providers, not just hosting in the cloud and deploying in the cloud, but being multi-tenant SaaS, meaning that they have one piece of software. It does, at first, very limited, now broader and broader things. But the idea is that there is no professional services. It's really a software company. It's like using eBay. You're using eBay, or you use the help of eBay, but you don't call anybody up and say, how do I do this? Or I don't think you can anyway. But that's how the door number 1 is. A lot of these cloud-based, new SaaS-based LMS vendors, and you know them, but here's how you know you found one, is when you can sign up for a free trial on their website and you don't have to talk to a salesperson. That's how you know you're a self-service vendor. If you have to talk to a salesperson, typically you're in a setup focus. But for training for business, I think what you want, and not in all cases, sometimes you can start off with, in either door. But in training for business, I think it's important to find a business partner, somebody that is really focused and understands e-commerce, that understands SEO and knows that's not an executive title, that knows how to use and think about Google Analytics and about attracting users and content marketing and social and building a community and, and enhancing and reaching users and usability. All those things are wrapped around from a business partner standpoint, creating and deploying content for you and even administrating the system in some cases. That group of services is on the far side on a business partner. And I don't think there's necessarily a right door to go through, but you want to go through any one of these doors with your eyes wide open and intentionally. You don't want to just walk blindly through one of these doors. Because there's nothing worse than thinking that you're getting a business partner, but you bought a self-service, or vice versa. So it's really important to define that. up front. And so, from a self-service, what do you get? You get tutorials, you get some nameless person on the phone, not necessarily even the same person, and they hold your hand a little bit through a couple-week setup period. That's self-service. Setup focus, they've got project management plans. That's when you need to do historical data migration, especially if you're on a second LMS. You've got data, you've got integrations, you've got content, you have users, and you want to migrate them over to your new system. You need at least a setup focused, and then the business partner, the things I described, inclusive of ROI and measuring success. So those are the three different types. I think any LMS, any of the 600 LMS vendors can be grouped into one of these three. And so it's important what you need, as well as what you need ongoing. So it's not a matter of just getting that system up and running, but what do you need? If you are deploying content globally, you need to have help desk for users or admins, 24/7, 365 days a year. And where those resources are coming from, what training you're going to need, how you're going to train future admins, you need to define that. A lot of times organizations want their LMS business partner to do end user support. Other organizations already have help desk departments, protocols, outsourcing set up, and this is just another one. So defining on what you need is critical to find that right partner from a support standpoint. And the other one is your business requirements. What are your vendor qualifications? I just met a company the other day. They didn't want any private companies. They have to be public companies. We want to see what they're doing at all times from a fiscal standpoint. Well, that wiped out about 575 of the LMS companies as a possibility. Where are they located? Do they need to be in New York? Can they be anywhere in the world? We want references. We want industry experience, or it doesn't really matter to us. We're just looking for a certain system. So define what you want, because if a vendor's not public or they're not private, for example, and they know this up front, then they're not going to try to sell. They're not going to waste hours of your time and their time hoping that at the end of the day you're going to say, oh yeah, we really didn't mean that. So they'll just disqualify themselves right out. That's the whole point of this, of creating these requirements, is to use it so vendors qualify themselves out, and that makes a big difference. The other thing is, how you want to pay for it. And remember how I was saying about developing that 3-year usage plan? Well, that's the reason why you do that, because when you have a usage plan and you have your audiences and you've estimated on how they're going to interact, how frequently, how often, for what duration, all of those things you want to give to vendors, because they're going to come back and give you a license plan that aligns with that. Not all of them. The dumb ones will come back with the same plan, and then you can just disqualify them. But the smart ones are going to analyze that 3-year usage and say, I think you should use a consumption or a registration-based or an annual, or maybe you can define that yourself, certainly. But by doing the usage plans, you're setting yourself up for getting the right kind of contract, because there's no use paying like a user per year, for example, if you're going to have different users every year. So that's a terrible model. So it'll be way more expensive than you need to be. So the only way to solve that whole problem is to articulate, what terms that you're looking for. And so once you have all this, you're ready for the fun step. This is when you start qualifying. If you talk to vendors before step 2, you're probably talking too soon, in my opinion, unless you're looking for education. But it's too soon until you have all that documented. Because when you get all that documented, I call that the blueprint, the template. So now you know your business functional use cases, you know any technical limitations or things that you have to have, you know what door you're going to go through on a professional service level. Write all that down. You wrote your business case already on who your audiences are, why you're doing this, what business metric you're going to impact. Write all that down the whole time that you're collecting it. And it's not a big document. It could be 5 or 10 page document, which is nothing, and give that to the vendors as your first step. You make contact, they reach out to you, you send them that use case scenario document, and you say, this is what we're looking for. Is this in your core wheelhouse? And if you don't hear yes, then keep moving on. If you do hear yes, then say, okay, let's schedule an hour call, and not an hour call where you listen to all the the great things that the vendor has most likely done, but it's a qualifying call to walk through those use cases. And what you want to do is walk through use case by use case and say, tell me how you guys address this. You're not looking at it now, you're just hearing it. And you can hear it in their voice. If they don't do it, say, well, we don't do that, or they're hemming and hawing, then, you just note that. And if you're not getting 100% on your use cases, with 600 LMSs out there, you want to get 100% or 95%. There's no need to settle for 80% match or 75% match. You want to go for the full match. And if you take the time to define it as I described, you'll be able to get vendors. And so now all of a sudden, you put them through this process. And depending on how serious it is, you can use these as increasing qualifiers. So it could just be the verbal call. And then you actually have a use case demonstration. So that's when you say, all right, well, that sounds great after the call. Let's schedule my team now that I know you're almost qualified, and let's see it in action. But what I want to see is I want to see use case by use case and present it through that lens so that I can see how the system would work as we envisioned and documented it. And if you're not seeing how it worked as you envisioned and documented, right there's a yellow or a red flag. It goes even so further. The best of the vendors will even do proof of concepts for you, where that's kind of like a sandbox, but the difference between a sandbox and a proof of concept is one's just opened up and lets you play, and the other one is driven by business partners. So a proof of concept is I take your exact business problem in hand and build out the LMS to show you that exact scenario from a client standpoint. And so when the stakes are really high, you want proof of concepts. And regardless of whether you do this in the earlier stages, typically vendors will try to hold their references until they're vendor of choice or close to vendor of choice. But no matter when you're in the process, you always want to take the time for the references and talk to the clients and ask them what they like or don't like, and ask them if there's anything that they would do differently if they were to do it all over again, or any advice that they could give you with a potential new client coming on board. It'll give you some good insight on not just about the vendor, but the way to think about the project in general from that. And so what I like to do is I put all this in a matrix where I'm comparing vendor by vendor across each use case, and I say, on a 1 to 10, I think they did this at an 8. They did this at a 9. They didn't show this at all, and I can use that as a comparison. And that every time I qualify one, it goes into that spreadsheet, and that way, what ends up happening is you're ready to select a partner. So once you find the right handful of those qualified vendors, you've talked to them, you've seen it in the use case scenario, then it's time to get the proposal. Not before then, but after you've already qualified them. Now you want to ask them, put it all in writing. Let's, create that request for proposal that has your business case in it, that has those use case scenarios, that has all of those things documented. And now you say, give us your answers in writing so that you have a defensible and historical proof of your decision. So 2 years down the road from now, and they say, why did you choose this XYZ vendor? You say, this is why. We went through a scientific process. We rated the vendors apple to apple, and this is how we came to it. And that's always good to have. Then you got that pricing, apples to apple, and it's time to make a decision. And you don't have to be afraid of that decision because you got a handful of viable partners, and you pick the best one. And if nothing else, use your gut feeling because it's almost always right. So those are the 4 steps of planning, defining, qualifying, and then going for the proposal. And it's not about writing this big whiz-bang RFP and starting there. Hold that to the end, and you're going to find that you'll find partners and not just vendors. So run right up to the hour, Taylor. But let's throw it over to you, and let's see a couple more examples here before our hour is up of what your clients are up to.
Sounds good, John.
Here it comes. There you go.
There we go. You should see my screen there. Obviously our clients have different industries they represent. An extensive amount of our work is also in professional education. They're nonprofits or for-profit organizations targeting a profession, trying to deliver education. They might be targeting the legal profession, healthcare, financial management, but they have a discrete need to deliver education, and they compete, so they run like a business. And I'm just showing you one from the neurosurgeons where basically we're promoting education in a very visually engaging way, obviously dealing with a subject matter that may not always look great on a website, so we want to make it look engaging. And we also want to promote kind of that social lens on the data, showing them other people who have viewed this course or what popular items are out there so that people can gravitate to content that may make more sense to them. Instead of just listing in the previous life of LMS platforms, we would just show a big restaurant menu of choices from A to Z of courses. It wasn't aesthetic, it wasn't engaging, and you can predict the kind of revenue activity that came and resulted in. So we're trying to promote, just like Amazon is trying to promote products, and borrowing a lot of those concepts. We're not trying to recreate the wheel, but we're trying to use those same concepts that have been successful in those sites to engage the audience. Now, in Rackspace's community here, we're running a program globally that they're running a cloud university where basically they have MOOCs, they have a certificate program, and they've started very simply. As you can see, they didn't stylize the widgets that much. Even though they're a public company, they came with a very focused initial budget, and what they're doing is these widgets are promoting content. They're feeding their Twitter content coming through the site, and they're crowdsourcing content. So really keys to success for them have been crowdsourcing and getting topical subject matter like big data and analytics, being able to promote things, and using the LMS as a promotional platform and a medium, and then using other channels and feeding it through the site. And the funny thing is that this is bi-directional. The site has gone so well. They've had 60,000 people go through this, very good reputation. The feedback's great. And now they're saying the gross majority of the traffic that's coming to the site is coming from social, blogging, and other platforms outside of just organic advertising. So it's been terrific for them, and they're just growing with that. So what they started off with was a certificate program. Now they've launched into MOOCs and other specialist programs, and soon to be talking about other concepts like digital marketing and PHP, WordPress, some of the popular platforms that are out there on the web. And as you can see, the system itself is helping them take that course, add assessment or questions and tests, and then rounding it off with an evaluation, all through our platform.
Wow. Neat. That's neat.
Thank you, John.
Wow. Cool. And one thing I forgot to talk about, and we got maybe just a minute, just because I've gotten this question a couple times recently, and I heard your answer on this, and it's so much better in mine. Tell me why an organization would want to use Google Analytics for an integration with Google Analytics into their training for business site.
It's a good question, and people always have that question. Sometimes we're surprised by it too, is that they're not doing it. The key thing is where your initial question is, what's different about this versus a training operations? This is a business, and we do have the standard educational metrics that any LMS would provide. The grades, did someone get a good score or bad score? How much time do they spend? We better have those features, right? Those are elementary to our profession. What we need to do is also keep in mind that we're running a business. So Google Analytics is probably one of the key things in Elements or another analytics package from Adobe. They have to be a key part of any web-facing content and strategy. And a platform like ours will speak into those analytics so that you're not just getting who's completing courses, what grades, but how much time is being spent on site, what pages are they accessing, what's the path of access, where are they spending their focus in the learning catalog that you have, what products that you're offering in your educational listings, and then things like that are very supportive and helpful for future planning. What devices are they using? Is Android more popular than iOS? Where are they coming from in the world will help you plan out your content delivery strategy, and what browsers are they using will help you build to your learning standards. Can you go up to the higher, fancier browsers and do some fancier things like responsive, or do you have to build, because you're in a healthcare environment, you have to build to a very low-level Internet Explorer, because that's what, unfortunately, some of the hospitals that we deal with and see. So it's very imperative as part of the strategy to keep analytics in mind, and our tool, like other progressive tools, will feed into your analytics package.
Wow, neat. Neat. Outstanding. Outstanding. So there we are, right at the hour. In a million years, I didn't think we'd actually get our content done in an hour. Tamer says we've been having good conversations, but sliding right in. But I think if you could take anything away, hopefully we made clear today is that training for business is different than training your employees, and it's a competitive differentiator. It's used to win in the marketplace, and smart companies are using it effectively and growing that part of the business because smarter people are better clients. It's as simple as that. And you can change the behavior through education, and you can do it in a way here that drives profit. The challenge being, of course, is that LMSs were invented in the HR space, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to come into the e-commerce space. And so the way that you have to find the right partner for you out of all that fluff is to go through a simple process of defining your requirements, especially your use cases. Go through that blocking and tackling so that when you're prepared to hit the vendor community, you know what you want and you know how you want it, and you can find partners that align with that vision, and you'll be a whole lot more successful if you do it that way. No LMS is right for everyone, but every LMS is right for someone, and smart buyers find the right match. So hopefully this was a valuable session for you today. Our upcoming webinars are on talentslearning.com webinars, but we've got some great extended enterprise ones coming up for channel and association here over the next few weeks. And then at the end of October, we have our first annual here LMS Awards. So by that point, I'll have 100 LMSs reviewed, and we're finally ready to reveal what we think here on the different categories of who's really the best. So we hope you to see at one and all of those. And once again, this is John Ley and Tamer Ali. And Tamer, thanks so much here for joining me today and sharing your insights. Your organization is doing some of the finest extended enterprise and training for business out there, and it's my pleasure here to host you and to learn from you. And thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. I feel likewise and many more. So thank you, and thank you for everyone's time, especially on a Friday, right before lunch or at lunch.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we hope to see you on the next one. We'll be sending up follow-up here with the link to the recording, and then we've also created a real nice written white paper here that goes into even more detail than we talked about today, so you can really dig into it as a takeaway. Thank you for attending today. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone. Thank you, John. Have a good one. Great weekend.